forego the pledge since we had that during committee meeting. All right, I will start with comments from the public regarding items that are not on the school board agenda. And seeing none, I will move to amendments to the agenda.
Yep, so we're going to actually move under the administrative reports. We're going to move that order around a little bit so that we'll get special ed report first, and then the Rebel Booster presentation is going to need to be around 8 o'clock or so, because Rebecca Stone isn't able to make it until about that time. Okay. Okay.
David, the only thing I would ask is if they do get here in time to go first, can we go first?
Sure. I think if that happens, we can see how that goes. So, right now we'll keep that as an amendment. I'd like to. Try not to juggle things around, but anyway, we'll that's where we'll keep it for now.
Okay. Anything else?
Nope.
All right. And seeing that Nirali is not here this evening, did we hear Delina if she was going to be here later?
I have not heard from her.
Okay. So we
Nor have
will
I.
forego the student representative report. But do you have announcements, David?
I don't have any formal announcements, although we've had so many activities, from the play to mentor celebrations to sporting activities. Just, anybody who's attended any of those events have just, we've gotten tons of positive feedback. So, and I know I'm missing many, many different activities, so I want to be careful, to even attempt to name them. Julie?
Can I just go back for 1 minute to Nirali? Since she's not here and we don't meet again until February 3rd or something like that, can we just ask you to find out about if Patrick has looked for someone new? Because
Sure.
It's getting to that late part in the year where we should know who our person is, and just...
I have not asked him, so
Okay.
I'm happy
Well,
to
we
do
also,
so.
I noticed we didn't actually have that on the agenda either, so we should, if you can remember, we'll put that on the agenda
Okay.
too.
Yep.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
All right, we'll move on to agenda item 5, the city and school collaboration.
Well, I don't have a lot more to report. We just had some collaboration with them, with the steering committee. Elizabeth and I have had a meeting. We don't have another one planned. I need to, at the same time, when we talk about setting up possible conversation to continue the steering committee topic of marijuana, we'll try to get another date with you and I. I don't believe we have one.
No, I've not seen it, but this might be a good time for the board to discuss whether the
Next
board
steps.
supports a follow-on meeting and kind of under what circumstances, so that David and I can take that message back in a timely manner.
I would say I definitely support another conversation. I'd like to see the names and the positions of the people that are being proposed to talk, so kind of know what we're getting into before we commit to it.
Okay, it sounds like those have been identified, so that should not be an issue.
Great.
Generally, is there consensus that we are willing to support another community or public meeting of the steering committee to discuss marijuana legalization?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think since we had 3 people came out very strongly opposed to it, we should hear the other side.
And the window for that, Elizabeth, is, Kevin asked for kind of within 10 days, 2 weeks or so. I don't know if that even
Well,
works.
I got the
with-
impression it could be scheduled within,
Okay.
That
The
time
people in
frame,
Colorado
but-
could be available within that,
yeah.
if we gave that much lead time.
Okay.
Do we, Martin, is there any kind of a window? I know Tim
Right.
Ash's committee is circulating through the state now.
Right, I just heard today that I think it might be going out of the Senate Judiciary Committee relatively soon, but it has 2 or 3 more stops in the Senate. I don't think we're expecting to see it, and I anticipate it actually is going to get out of the Senate in 4 or 5 weeks from now. So to the extent we want to influence the Senate, we better do it very, very soon. But to influence the House, we have a little more time. But I would set it up for sometime in February, I would think.
You would do February. I guess that was one of my
yeah,
questions,
yeah,
is
I
I'm a
think so.
little reticent to go to the public with another meeting request prior to town meeting.
Yeah, well, there is that too.
What's your take on the likelihood? Give us the percentage
My
here.
tea leaf reading
Yes.
is that it's not going to make it out of the House this year because there are a lot of questions.
Mm-hmm.
And it has to be done right. And unlike in Colorado and Washington, where that was a referendum, where the public said, we're going to do this, in Vermont, the legislature is where the decision lies, and we have to figure out, if we're going to do it, how to do it right. And it's just my perspective that it's as you dig, it's a very complicated issue.
Kind of like Act 46.
Yeah, Act 46 is pretty complicated too.
Okay, got it.
That took 2 years to really get there.
Okay, that's
and
good
we're still not
timetable
quite there.
information. Thank you.
So
But
what's
that's
the
just me
board's, what's the
saying that.
board's general feeling on a preference for after town meeting?
I mean, the only thing that was going through my head as you said that was, we had, I don't remember how many people from the public actually showed up for that event, but if we were able to get it recorded so that people could see it, I mean, I think the steering committee monopolized the questions to a large degree. So public engagement, I don't think was the goal as much as it was information gathering
is
for
correct,
us.
yeah.
Right.
And they can view it if they can get it recorded. So
Right.
I wouldn't be so concerned, I'm personally not as concerned about the before
Sort of
town meeting
request for
issue.
another meeting, okay.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think part of the idea was it was as much to inform the community as to inform the board and council to see if we wanted to actually weigh in on this
With a
issue
position,
with the State House. So,
Okay, all right, so we'll provide that feedback through David and myself and see if we can hone in on a date earlier versus later, and then vet the names and the positions before agreeing to them.
So I expect Kevin, I had said to Kevin, he can share with me some general ideas and dates, and then we'll do the same with you folks. So, we'll share those dates and see what matches we might have
Yeah,
to avoid conflicts.
and if you could get the names and
Yep.
maybe some bio information or something that
Yeah,
could be
that'd be great.
circulated to the board ahead of time, that would be great.
Got it.
Anything else on city-school collaboration? Okay, we'll move on to the superintendent's report.
So I don't have a report for you tonight, but I do have one item that I just want to highlight. I think I've informed you maybe through email, I can't remember, but the DRB will be hearing feedback on February 2nd, specific to the homeless shelter. So I do plan to go, but again, I think it would be good if anyone would like to join me to hear and perhaps ask questions specific to some of the thoughts, ideas, and concerns, questions you might have.
And how does that work, David, in terms of, they don't render a decision at that time, do they, or do they?
No, I think, no, I don't believe they do. They won't on the first. I do think it's important, though, if there were no questions, then it would likely influence the kind of the pace at which they may be moving forward. Again, I don't really, the only thing I was informed was that they were going to be there, and I've been watchful of that.
So you just said the first, but before that you
Second.
said the second?
Second,
Okay, second.
February 2nd.
so are they the body that we would ask questions? I mean, the biggest concern that has kind of come about for me is whether individuals who are on the sex offender registry are allowed to stay there, which I'm very uncomfortable with that because of the proximity to the middle school. And is the DRB where we ask or inquire on that question?
Well,
As
again,
far
I-
as zoning, I don't know.
Those
if
were
it
some
is.
things that I did ask because I knew that was a conversation that we had, the board had with me, and so I did ask that specific question, and he did respond to me that he did not think that, again, he's not the board, he's their administrative officer. He did not think, however, that they would see that as a reason not to allow.
Who, the
Who's-
DRB?
The DRB would, so their administrative, would not be inclined to not allow based on that concern. They are, again,
Well, there's a state law.
there's a state law, But that's not something that this body or the homeless shelter would be required to monitor. They're not. It's
What about
part
the
of
city in
It
general?
would be part of the individual and whether there's probation or whether that they have restrictions in what they can and cannot adhere to. So, again, more questions perhaps out of that than what I've provided. That was, again, Ray's, I had asked for some information. He came back giving me the date and also giving me a little bit of that feedback that they're not the enforcers of that. The individuals that are on the registry, they have an obligation and an expectation, and also law
Well, I
enforcement
guess,
also
I
have
guess
it.
I would want to find out more about that issue if it's not the DRB. I mean, if we need to get a legal opinion on this from Stitzel Page as far as what if anything we can do if in fact they don't have a policy that prohibits.
I'm happy to do that. I'm giving you again my kind of, I had asked for some information and asked about, there was a few concerns. He came back, gave me the date, and also responded to my
But that's the
My
DRB
question.
again that it's
yeah,
coming back.
so this is, Ray Blair is the administrative officer. He resides over the DRB to look at those regulations that are governed and giving me that feedback. Again, I'm not asking that he,
I think we
There are
should
other
get legal counsel. I mean, I think we should have somebody look at this. I think
it's worthy to get confirmation. It seems, as much as I'm in favor of where you're going with it, it seems impractical. If somebody walks in off the street that's homeless, how are you going to somehow identify them as being on that list?
My understanding is that the Burlington warming shelter that this individual started originally,
Yep.
this became an issue and they dealt with it in some manner.
Somehow they had.
I don't know the
some type of
details,
solution.
but this
Okay.
was a concern and they did deal with it.
Good.
So, but we should have somebody look into that a little bit deeper.
Great.
so is that a direction you would like me to take?
I think that's the board's consensus.
I think Susan has a
And
question.
I might suggest if board members can't attend the DRB meeting and you do have questions in general, whether
That'd be great.
we believe the DRB is the right body to address them or not, maybe to forward those to David, so at least we have a running list of questions.
I think Susan had a question.
Sorry, go ahead.
But with regard to the homeless shelter, and if it's a shelter that's serving families, that would be fine, and I think it might work out for
It's not.
the students.
You'd
Yeah.
ask.
Yeah, our understanding is it's, yeah.
Oh, we already know that. Yeah, I was gonna say that would work out for families, schools are right there.
Right.
Right,
Yeah.
right, no, that would be
We
great.
asked that
Yeah.
question, and it's primarily individual adults.
That was all.
Yeah.
All right, anything else
No,
on that?
thank you.
All right.
I'll look into that and get back to you.
We'll move on to administrative reports.
So we're going to move these around, and Joanne Godak, who is here,
Poor Susan.
and of course, yes. And so Joanne, as you know, this was on the agenda before. Joanne had provided her report to you. And we're happy to have her back. I do think that it would be appropriate for her just to go through her presentation and answer any questions that you have, especially given kind of the current situation of our budget and some of the things that we talked about specific to student needs or increasing student needs. And Joanne can further break down some of the information that we shared with you before. I will say that you'll see some of the some of the slides that she's going to use are actually, the same that we used when we talked about some of the increases in staffing. So, welcome, Joanne.
Oh, there we go. So you have my report there, while I'm getting this set up. Where I just list off in the start, like the number of students that we have and the staffing and how the system works. And then gave you the background around the three pieces of legislation that really drives the work that we do. I don't know if any people have any questions about that. How do I open up the flash drive?
You have to go down to the computer.
Where? Computer? Computer?
You can get there too.
There it is.
Yeah.
Okay, now I'm gonna find this thing. You guys get to see, there it is. Bear with me. Yeah, a lot of songs on there. I grabbed that out of my drawer because I was afraid I wouldn't find it in Google. I know she just put that microphone there for me, but I want to move around. Sorry. Let's see, slideshow. Play. All right. Does this make it work? I can make it work over here too. So, really, the three pieces of legislation. We're gonna move that.
Yeah, I think it'll pick you up.
Okay. You know, the federal legislation, IDEA, is really the mandate for kids with special needs. And so that those children that are eligible for that really are those that we go through a whole process of evaluation and determination, and it's a rigorous process. And that's where we have the 273 children that are identified for this year that I listed at the top. And largely our special educators and speech pathologists are who serve these students. But we also have kids who only receive accommodations through Section 504. And these are students who might have an impairment that don't really need specialized services, but they have to access. So they might need some therapies, or they might need to have things put in place, accommodations as far as technology or ramps or those kind of things. And then Act 117 is our educational support system movement that started back in the 90s. And this is really the driver of our multi-tiered system. It's trying to create a system of supports that stops that referrals into special education, stops that expensive special education by building a whole system that's going to serve students. And the top, I said that we have 110 students on 504 plans, and we have 153 students on EST plans as well. So I'm gonna.
So, can I ask you a question, Joanne? One thing we hear about all the time from David is, like, you know, especially when he's asking us for more FTEs, we
Yes.
talk about high need cohorts. Like, you know, there's not specific things, but it's a very high need class. For instance, like I'm thinking about the 4th grade at Central School. You know what I mean? And so it's hard. Can you help us understand where those needs fit into your plan, or don't they?
Well, you mean when there's a cohort? Well, each school kind of has to have a system of support in place, an educational system and a special education system. So I think that at the middle school, we have a special educator on every team. And every school has a speech pathologist. So at the middle school, that's embedded right on their teams. At the high school, we have special educators within the departments. So they both have systems that kind of work. At the elementary school, it's a little bit more complicated because you can have a large number of kids, like the 4th grade, that has a large number of students that might be eligible or have needs, and then there's not as many. So they try to, what we try to do is look at how many students we have in need and what the caseloads are, and a ratio of one special educator to about every 50 students or so in those buildings. And that's how I do my staffing. I look at that ratio, and we also look at paraeducator ratios using the work from Michael Giangreco around numbers that count. He's a professor from UVM who's done a lot of work around funding, not funding for special education, but support for special education that goes beyond just those kids that are eligible, but also those other students that could benefit from the presence of a special educator. So the way the elementary schools work is typically special educators are assigned to like grade levels or teams, and then they support that grade level or team in not only the kids on IEPs, but also any other situations that might come up on those teams.
Okay.
So,
I have a question as well.
yes.
The numbers you mentioned, 273 for IDEA, 110 and 153, is there overlap in those, or are those all?
Those are separate students.
Those are separate students, okay,
Yes.
thank you.
And when you're on an IEP, you're also eligible for 504. You get your accommodations and your access through your IEP plus services, and on a 504 plan, it's largely just accommodations.
Okay.
Every once in a while, some services, but mostly just accommodations.
Okay.
Is it common to have overlap into 504?
From an IEP?
Yeah.
No,
Okay.
no.
So there wouldn't
they
be a
would
high
separate.
percentage
No,
that-
there wouldn't be a double count there at all. There shouldn't be a double count there at all.
But there could be accommodations within the IEP that might be, could be similar to what someone might see in 504.
Yeah, an IEP is a 504 plan
Yeah.
and a service plan all put together.
Okay.
Because if you have if you have a disability, you have an impairment where you need to have protections from the law. So we need to have accommodations so those students can have access to the curriculum and all kinds of things that are going on in school. Plus, in addition to that, they might need some specialized instruction to build up their reading skills.
So maybe I asked my question incorrectly.
Yeah.
I think originally it was there, overlap in your numbers, but what I'm really asking is of the 273, is there a high percentage that do have accommodations that are covered typically under a 50? So
No,
what
they would have accommodations, but they're covered right in their plans, their IEP plans. They wouldn't have a 504 plan.
well, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Do they have accommodations?
Yes, they do.
In a high percentage or all?
All of them.
Okay.
All of them do, yeah.
Gotcha.
So it's 536 students of our 2,400, approximately
Yeah, what's
2,300
that?
something. So do you have could we see, and if you don't have it now, I'd be very interested in just seeing what the trend has been. I know that you provided us a chart
Yeah, I don't
before,
think
but
I-
I couldn't
We
really
have one of those.
tell as far as totality of the numbers.
Yeah, I don't think I have, I wanted to show you guys just some pictures because, this is the Project Search, which is one of our big projects.
Collaborate.
It's at the edge. So these students aren't all South Burlington students. Some of them are adults that are tuitioning. We hold the position and the money flows through South Burlington and I manage with Deb Baker Moody, who's a teacher, but we get tuition from other school districts and it's been so successful so far in our first year. It's really been great. The interns I'm just amazed at what they've learned and hopefully they'll all be placed in jobs at the end. That's the whole goal of this Project Search, which is a national program. So you've seen the child count over time. I don't have the 504 and the EST numbers. I could try and get that together for
So this
another
is the
time.
IEP numbers
Yeah.
here.
These are IEP numbers, but I also think that this is good to look at, like the percent of ADM. And David was asking me about this when I had this. Our percent this year, well, 2014 was 11.4 or something like that. So I went back and looked at the state numbers, and the state average is 16.9% of ADM.
We define ADM.
Average daily membership, so that's like the number of kids. So it's
Thank you.
really looking at what percent of our population is actually, do we serve on IEPs? And you want to try and keep that stable or low. You don't want to have that growing, and in Vermont, it's growing. The percent is growing across the state, but not for us. So this is good news, I think, because that's, when we talk about those multi-tiered systems and the educational support system and those FTEs that we hire to do that, that's helping to prevent more kids going into special education. Helping
So
to.
you think that downward trend can be attributed, at least in part, to the multi-tiered?
It could be.
MTSS?
Yeah, it's hard to know. There's so many
Sure.
Well,
I'd
I
like
mean,
to say that it is,
Sure,
but
right.
it's,
I mean, I think
yeah.
there's speculation without hard data, Martin, but a lot of the things that we're doing with early childhood education and quality care, early identification and supports, good tier one instruction, all of those things, I think, is our hope that it's going to continue to attribute to
We'd
this
like to
trend.
I'd like to see this number kept stable. And on my opinion, 12% is sort of like the national average of kids on IEPs. And in South Burlington, ours should probably be a little bit lower than that. We have a fairly, upper middle class population, although
Right.
that's kind of shifting over time. You typically are going to have like between, like a 9 or 10%. So I think we're good where we are with those numbers, and I'd like to see that stay stable if we could, the percentage anyways.
I think one thing that concerns me when it's such a balance, because when you think about an individual child with needs, we have an obligation of delivering a public education to provide the service to that individual child. When you talked about David and you're talking about Joanne, sort of, we hope the multi-tiered system of support is helping, and we hope it can be attributed to the staffing levels you talked about. And yet, then your comment right now, I'm not picking on you, Joanne, but to
Yep.
sort of say we should be below the national average because of the economics within our community. it doesn't make me feel great that we are making decisions and investments as a school district that improve the environment for the overall pool of students. And that's what I struggle with is that an unreasonable expectation? Or is it just a matter of we need to be collecting the data that would measure that, or the data isn't accessible? I don't know the right answer, but
So,
that's sort of, I have a hard time
so
reconciling
you feel like,
that sometimes.
so is your question, why would we in South Burlington be putting in this multi-tiered systems of support if we don't necessarily need it for the general population? Is that your question?
No, it's really just when we make these investments, how do we measure success
Okay.
of those? And
Yeah.
I don't need a discussion on that
Yeah.
particular
I
investment,
think it's
but
a good question. Yeah.
But we've heard that said, and we've heard that specifically something that would address this particular
Well,
subsegment of
How
students.
do you go back? How do you go back?
Good question.
Because I just wanted to say, whoops, nope, that's forward. Now I lost my train of thought. If we're keeping this pretty stable, is a good return on your investment? Well, maybe not just for South Burlington, but I think you were talking a little bit about this, Martin, is that to educate a child in special education is very expensive, and the outcomes are very bad. Once a child is in special education, typically they don't make progress over time. So that's another reason to have multi-tiered systems of support, because that label of special education, typically we lower our expectations for kids that have disabilities, and then they don't reach the outcomes that we want them to reach. So we're trying to change that paradigm, first of all, and that's part of the multi-tiered system of support, and to get them services quicker and earlier and create systems, classroom systems where they can be successful. Then we won't have to spend the money in special education, and we'll get better outcomes. That's what the research is telling us. Now, that should play out in our outcome data once we start getting better at collecting that.
But I guess that there's two things that I think that would help us understand how this trend is helping us. One thing it'd be nice to correlate against is how our level of poverty has been changing, through free and reduced lunch, because there is a correlation from what I had the benefit of this morning. Rebecca Holcomb had a presentation. It was focused on suspensions and expulsions, and it was before the Judiciary Committee, because often there is some correlation between kids who are not in school very much that end up in the justice system. Any event, but there is definitely a correlation between poverty and increasing rates of disability. And if we have an increasing rate of poverty, or our students that are in poverty, and yet we're going the opposite way as far as the disabilities that we're seeing, that actually kind of supports, in fact. The other thing that would be really nice to know is statistics that we have, again, trend statistics, as far as suspensions and time out of class. I guess there's a couple, it's not just suspensions, I'm forgetting the other terminology for it.
In-school suspensions.
Yeah, the in-school suspensions because it costs resources to keep kids in school in those situations. And it also, there's a high correlation between, again, the poverty and disability for suspensions. And if we're doing really well at not having kids out of the classroom, I think that looks favorably on these statistics as well, so.
And you saw this, I think I showed this, would have been a little bit different slide, but again, I feel like the specific learning disability one, where it's looking like it's, sort of stable or trending down, is where we would see our multi-tiered system of support impacting. The developmental delay is our little guys. We're seeing more of those because we have more students. Sorry.
That touchscreen.
No, I don't, whoops, wrong way. And then these two, the emotional disturbance and other health impairment, which is largely ADHD, those attention disorders that really impact kids and their ability to access education. Those are on the increase. And some of these come out of the trauma and the situation of the poverty situations that kids come out in.
It
Some
could
of
be
it-
most correlative to
It
that.
could be correlated with that. And autism is on the rise, continues to be on the rise. I hope that that eventually levels off, but that's also a tough disability to treat, and those kids struggle with being able to access and need a lot of specialized instruction in order to make progress on the curriculum. So this is evident of the supports and services that you guys helped us to support in the budget. So I do have this clinical team that I describe in here. Some of those positions, those FTEs that you support, whoops, that's not working, that link. Let me look it up here.
It's working, I think.
Yeah. These positions that we have are, can I do it?
Yeah, you can.
Go this way. I'm gonna go that way.
The bar, yeah,
There you go.
There, you can see these people. So we have school psychologists, a behavior analyst. We have 3 school psychologists, actually. A occupational therapist that you learned about, we had to put on staff because of the IRS report. Another behavior analyst. We work closely with the I-team from, it's a state agency that works through the AOE. They work with our most complex students, and Lisa, we pay contract with her through the I-team to work with us, and we have a contract with a physical therapist, and then we have assistive technology person. But this clinical team really, our teachers can ask for support. They can put in a referral, they'll come to a team meeting, they'll do trainings, they are able to work not only with kids on
Observations of students.
not only with kids on IEPs, but the IDEA grant allows us to use some monies for prevention. So when I put in that grant, I try to make sure that everybody has a little bit of time to work with kids that are not on IEPs. So we also can use them to help build the system around our positive behaviors and supports and the instructional pieces. It's been a real positive, this is the piece that's been a real positive way of building systems and supports for individual students and for schools, this clinical team that we have.
So
Yes.
what kind of interventions are we able to have in the pre-K area?
Pre-K.
Yeah, is that something where we're reaching down to that level
Yep.
to do some
Yes.
assistance?
I was going to talk to you about that.
Oh, okay.
Here's the preschools.
Oh.
So, I added in this past year an additional early childhood special educator and early childhood speech language pathologist. And right now we have 2 of our own preschools, one at Chamberlain and one at Orchard. We run a morning session and afternoon session in both sites. So we serve 24, we can serve up to 48 students for their 10 hours of universal pre-K. In each classroom, we try to have more kids, typically developing kids than kids with needs. We try to have at least 7 typically developing kids in those classrooms. And the goal was to try and make those classrooms more typical, so there aren't so many kids with disabilities. I don't even know what the next slide is, but then what we ended up doing is having the extra staff people go out to our pre-K partners. They work at 5 or 6 different preschools in the area and serve kids with disabilities right in those preschools where parents are comfortable, where they're already set up, they're already working there. And the positive thing about that is not only are they able to serve the kids with disabilities, but they're working with that staff to really really build up those preschool partners who might not have access to some of that consultation.
And this is where multi-tiered systems of support, I know that acronym gets overplayed to you, but when we look at, good tier 1 instruction, that's also important to our preschool providers. And part of the opportunities that we provide to them is that pulling them into some of that work so that they are in fact more knowledgeable and able to best serve all students.
I was curious about that too, because I don't know if there's grant funding or, we've often talked about the mission of the public school system, but is there outreach to guardians and parents and families to support what's being reinforced in school?
As far as there's parent workshops. We've done a lot of parent workshops. Well, we work with Growing Kids South Burlington. David and I work with Elizabeth Meyer, who's helped us with, we have a parent blog that goes out, a lot of those workshops and opportunities for parents. What's available for preschool? What play groups are available? What are you interested in learning about? Is it toileting? Is it behavior management?
But
Is
it tends to be
yes.
self-selection.
Self-selection,
in that case.
although if a student is on a plan, then part of those plans, we can have parent training as part of it. So if a student had a particular health condition or something that the family needed to know about, then part of their plan could be providing them with some training around that health condition.
Yeah, I don't want to get into the
Yeah.
weeds. I was just
Yeah,
curious
right.
that if we're providing this to our preschool partners, that's another element
Yeah,
of.
yeah.
And you can have an IEP for a 3-year-old
Yes,
who's just into
yes.
preschool? Okay.
3-year-olds,
They're
there's
not IEP,
child.
they're not,
Yeah, they're called IEPs.
younger ages or
Well, for
IFSPs.
CEIS, Children's Integrated Services starts to serve children at birth that have health conditions or, conditions of delay. And some of those children will automatically get on an IEP at 3, and some we have to evaluate. But we try and make that as seamless as possible. Our early childhood special educator sits on that team and knows about the students coming up. Our whole plan is to really get them early, get them what they need, and really have them ready for kindergarten so that they can be successful.
Yeah, to either accommodate or in some cases, ensure that, the minimal amount of service so they can thrive in the classroom and the least restrictive environment is there.
And we've been talking a lot about MTSS.
Yeah, they're tired of that.
So I gotta throw it out there again. That multi-tiered system of supports where our teachers, special educators, speech pathologists, they're collaborating together and learning together about how to create classrooms where every kid can learn. We're exploring around now with this universal design for learning. Stuart's smiling because we're just getting started on it, but you know what universal design is for architecture. It means building a building where everyone can get in. So we want to build a classroom or an instructional setting where every child can learn. So we're really trying to work with our classroom teachers around building these places where I don't have to have a disability if I can't read. I could easily access that reading digitally and still be just like every other kid in the classroom. I don't have to have a disability if I can't write. I could easily use Dragon and speak my writing and have it be edited. So there are ways for us to design that, and our teachers some of them are really getting it, and we're really moving along in that area. And the assistive technology coordinator helps with that, as well as our psychologists, because they understand what a trauma-informed classroom looks like. All of those things helps us to design a learning situation where all kids can access, which in turn, hopefully will save us money over the long run, because kids may not even be identified with disabilities, because the setting allows them to function regardless. It's like wearing some glasses. If we can set up some of those things for kids, and they don't have to be labeled as disabled. And again, as I said earlier, once you get that special education label, the outcomes are dismal. So we want to try and not get there if we can. Or we can also change what special education means, I think. Oh, and I talked a little bit about the Project Search at the Fitness Edge. We're just got our business committee together this week. So all the interns are now meeting with business mentors who are going to help them do their job applications and interviews and things. And each of the interns has already been through 2 internships. They'll be starting their 3rd. It's been very positive. The Edge has really welcomed South Burlington. They welcomed those interns. I think we're going to get some good outcomes for these students, and I'll keep you informed next year how that goes. So inclusion really allows all the learners to make a difference in the world, all of them. So that's our mission here in South Burlington. Any questions about anything else? I didn't really talk much about the budget piece in here, but you're well aware of that.
I think it impacts me when I hear you say the outcomes are dismal. When you
Yes.
think of a student going through our system, and with a label we talk about ends all the time, so that
I
It
think,
just strikes me.
In a general, part of the reason, what we're trying to do is to change that.
Yeah.
And so when you talk about Project Search, those are positive program changes that don't make that dismal, And I think our work on inclusion and UDL, as Joanne indicated, is also to make it so learning can be more universal for somebody who has a disability but accesses, orally, with great accuracy and/or tactile can totally fly, and can solve things in a more complex way. So how are we doing that as opposed to just kind of either the stand and deliver, those more traditional things that you may have, that you're aware of around how we've educated?
Yeah, part of it is that special education was largely a sort of a monitoring of legal documents over time. And OSEP, the Office of Special Education Programs, didn't really care about outcomes. And also, we didn't include kids with disabilities in assessments. That's only recently happened. So we're on this projection that it's going to change the face of special education. They have also changed our monitoring practices now where they are going to be looking at outcomes. So the federal government is also going to look at, are we making a difference with all this money that we're spending and all these plans that we're putting in? So it's not that, and I think we've changed as far as what we expect from kids. I'll talk to some classroom teachers who have been here for a long time, and they're not used to having expectations for kids with disabilities. They're used to just allowing them to be present in their classroom. Now we have so much available, so much technology, so many new ways of teaching that we have no idea what some of these kids are going to be able to learn and where they're going to end up. The potential is limitless, and we didn't know that before. So I think it's just a changing face of education for these kids with disabilities. So it's exciting, very exciting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other board questions? Any questions from the public? All right, we'll move on to the second topic. Is it alumni?
It's the boosters, actually, so if you guys want to move forward, you actually can take a seat up here if you'd like where we can hear you and you can be heard on the mic.
Sure, I'm Rebecca Stone. I'm the treasurer for the Boosters.
I'm Christy Yeager, and I am one of the co-presidents.
Susan Sopchak, I'm the secretary.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here, and we're not too far off the schedule for you on
That's
time.
fine.
so
Thank you for
Rebecca.
accommodating
No
me.
problem. So these folks are here to give you a little bit of some information board on kind of the status of the boosters, and it's great to put a face and name together and share with you some of the activities and some of the funds and things that have been coming in and where they've been going. So turn it over to you folks.
Sure. Well, so I hope did everybody receive a
They do
copy?
have that, Rebecca,
Okay,
yes.
great. So this really reflects last fiscal year. I don't have everything cleaned up for this fiscal year. It's really a little bit too early to hand everything out. But primarily, our purpose is really to give back to the athletic clubs and teams. And so our biggest fundraisers over the course of the year are the ski and snowboard swap, which we do in the fall, and then we do a Calcutta in the spring. And then the other major ways that we bring in money are through the concession stand, which are run by the committee and a bunch of parent volunteers. And then we do sportswear sales, which are really run through the athletic department office. Lynn Kynock helps us a lot with that piece. She handles all the transactions, but the money comes back to the boosters. So that's the biggest way that we bring in money. There are a few peripherals.
Oh, I was going to say also, we have a shoe recycling program that
Yep.
we.
Some donations, so that falls under the donations line. A couple of other, little things. People will just give money to the boosters as well, and then we turn it back and give to. We have the way it's set up this year is teams approach us in the fall and in the spring, and they request money for things that fall outside of the budget. things that come up over the course of the year, needs that they have. And then the other primary way that we give back is through scholarship. I have been part of this association this is my 4th year, it's my 3rd year as treasurer. We've really been looking to, the committee has grown quite a bit over the past 2 years. So when I started, there were maybe 5 of us who met regularly. We meet just about monthly. We take some time off during the summer. And so over the past, since I've been treasurer, we've really been working to clean some things up. Things had been run really in an Excel spreadsheet until I took over, and then we moved to the accounting program. We do have an external accountant who helps us file our taxes, and we have to pay sales taxes for the ski and snowboard swap, so I deal with that in the fall. And we're really just kind of looking to make improvements in the process, and I think are, making some great strides. Our balance is probably a little higher than it needs to be at this point. We do want to have a significant reserve just for things. There have been some big ticket requests that came in. Even just recently, we had a request for a basketball shooter. It was, about a $7,000 expense. So occasionally those things come in. Of course, we've always been hoping at least, 7 or 8 years for toilets out there. So we've been sitting on some funds just in case that happens. And we're really looking to kind of improve I guess the best way to say it is we haven't ever really established we're going to give out X number of dollars every year, and we're really moving in that direction so that we have a finite amount based on what our earnings are the previous year. And that we can go to the athletic program and say, this is what we have to give out this year. All the coaches will get kind of advance notice of the request date and kind of, a ballpark of what we're able to give out, and then they would come to us with their requests. So, and of course, we have a lot of guidance from Ed Hockenberry in that area.
Another big ticket item that we gave out last year was a track timing system, and that enabled athletes to set record, or to be qualified for state meets without having to qualify elsewhere, and that makes our track meets more attractive to participate in as well, because we were using handheld timers before, and then you had to subtract like a 0.6 or 0.6, whatever, I don't know, of a second or something. So this way we have an electronic timing system. We also improved recently a request for some new starting blocks. Again, making it a more efficient track meet or whatever. So it's just items that aren't covered under normal athletic budget.
This is a ignorant question, but does the Booster Association support athletics exclusively or all co-curricular?
Athletics,
Okay.
yes.
And leadership programs, which is the athletic leadership.
Right,
program.
exactly. So it's my understanding that it's the Key Club that exists to help the academic. I'm not sure, I don't know much about it though, so.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So, is there opportunity for the boosters to be teaming up with the SB Foundation to make some progress on getting the bathrooms and such? I mean, has that been something that's thought about?
The foundation is not up and running.
Well, it's there, it's not up and running because it doesn't have a purpose, but, latrines out in the field might be,
Oh, that's what we're
might
hoping
make
for.
them no longer moribund. So. All right, well,
Do we know what the
running
bathrooms
water.
would cost? John?
Well, we're getting there.
Oh.
We're getting there. It's one of the key issues and one of the problems with it is we have the Potash Brook and the drainage. For instance, John Painter has a grant to put some trails in, and so far the engineering to get that Act 250 permit is about $3,000, and his grant is 15. So that is a factor that we'll get over. But with our bond issue, we, in the second phase of the bond issue was going to be the restrooms. Now, we're only going out for one bond issue to take care of the track and the field and all those improvements and the safety net and that kind of thing. But it's it's on the radar, it's in the plan. And we can get, by doing this other work, we can do the engineering for the restrooms at the same time, so, so it'll come into more focus. I know it's been a long wait. We did ask the question a couple weeks ago about the reserves that you have. We just asked Ed, and he said, well, you're using the funds, just like you said, for specific requests for special sports right now, but I think that would be helpful to figure it out in a plan, maybe with the foundation.
Yeah, I mean, and it could, to make it, I don't want to use the word more palatable, but something that SB Foundation could get more excitement behind, having it be a combination locker room, restroom type facility. I know that obviously makes it more expensive, but it sounds like it's the plumbing that's going to be a major holdup.
Major, it's.
Well,
a
hold
but
up,
yeah,
not
sure.
major, but
Yeah.
I mean, it just, especially if we see that the athletic advertising has paid off the bleachers, and so that's gonna be income from the field that could also be used for it. It seems like from these different angles, maybe we can make some progress on it.
So a couple of things, responding to the foundation, the school foundation, and we did have a more active foundation group of folks. We had some FTE associated with an individual that was a combined alumni and foundation to really help that, but that was a reduction. I forget how many years ago we made. This is again, probably eight years ago, maybe?
No, 4 or 5 years ago.
That we made a reduction of, so.
'Cause that was, yeah.
So we made a reduction in that FTE. It still does exist, to everyone's point. I have not, at this point, put any additional resources into trying to get some leadership in that. That's one area that I think is important. That said, we needed to get kind of our facilities in order, our known needs, and then I think we're in a good place now, as we prepare for the future, to get some additional focus to help steer the foundation to go out and say, we need, for these identified stewardship projects, if you will, this being one of them, to actually get some resources and energy around, somebody or a group of people providing some funds to help that happen.
I think it would be nice to understand sometime a general ballpark figure of what that would cost us. because-
We've gone around this in different ways when we did the concession stand, and, there was some high variability with that. So John's right, we definitely can certainly get to the ballpark. We did do some smart things when we did the concession stand, so we have water there. We have piped sewer there. Part of what John's talking about is when you get into the impervious surfaces or changing that, then you get into stormwater-related matters. And we're on the cusp of those things where then you gotta find, other mitigation places where you can accommodate for that impervious surface added.
When you say you're on the cusp of, what do you mean by that?
Well, if you can't just continually add, more roof space and take it off the ground. So even though this is not a huge space, we have to adhere to that. And I think when we did this, the turf field was, part of that equation, and that flows into the Potash Brook. So we have to be mindful of, all of the requirements. And
Let me just, my understanding is that the water bill that was passed last year, there's a provision that's likely going to be hitting us in the next 3-4 years. It's still in the regulatory process where we may have to, we don't have permits for all of our impervious surface right now. We may be facing stormwater remediation requirements in the next 3 or 4 years anyway.
Yeah.
It's a little bit up in the air, and at some point, we should have Tom DiPietro come and talk to us
Yeah.
about that. So that may not be a factor, adding, because we may be there anyway,
Yeah.
from what I understand.
we've kind of interpreted that as we kind of built that into the plan, and South
Right.
Burlington, as you know, is in the stormwater, and I'm not an expert in that, but
Right.
we basically, South Burlington's been kind of leading the way in stormwater recovery systems and
Right.
whatever. And John, did you have some,
Well,
I
I just want to
don't wanna overtalk this one.
give an example on it. The parking lot north of this school is pretty much mud. You know, it's gravel, but it needs, there's big puddles all the time. We cannot pave it. We have to even watch what kind of stone we put there, because if we do, you know, just silly example, a size of like this, then we're talking about stormwater retention ponds.
Yeah.
And then of course, then we'd have to use our field for the stormwater retention pond. So it's pretty tricky, and that's coming from Civil Engineering Associates.
We can start offering swimming classes.
Yeah. We play
So,
softball
I
or
mean, I don't want to
swimming.
get too far down, I mean, but the point being is that we've definitely identified this as an important project. I think the board certainly heard about it. We have a stewardship plan. I do think there's an opportunity when we have now more defined needs across the district, that we can prioritize those and we can then fundraise. My worry of the past, at least, for me, we didn't have things necessarily identified and we didn't have them prioritized very well. And I think that we've come a long ways in that. And so I think the board will see some additional activity around, how we can make some of these happen. So.
Yeah, there hasn't been, what was the last significant
Fundraising activity. Munson's, the bleachers, the concession stands.
The concession stand,
We're
probably.
we're really those kind of all bundled, and lights, so
Yeah.
those were, in some cases, those are also lessons learned. Wonderful gift, but sometimes the estimated cost to completion
Right.
is not necessarily consistent with what the actual is. So, that's also careful on our part to not just say, we need $500,000, and then you get, an eighth of or halfway through, and you need another 500. And so people who've given say, I thought it would be up. It's not. So, and obviously, if you wait 10 years, then the costs are going to also be a problem of compounding. But
So I just have a question of understanding, because I'm not that familiar with how the booster has worked. So how are decisions made about which teams get what equipment, and is there any guidance about making sure that at some point all teams are getting, obviously they all have different cost factors, but they all get some piece of the money?
Right. So we do keep track of the asks that have come in over the years, and I think it goes back maybe as far as maybe 1997, 1998, somewhere in there. And the call gets put out by the athletic director, and kind of with the here are the dates where we'll be taking proposals or asks. And we really, as a committee, with Ed there, sit down and listen. The way it's been run the past 2 years is the coach has come in with a couple of the athletes. And so everybody knows that there are funds there and that they can come and present with their requests. And then it's just up to them to take advantage of it. And so we'll weigh each case, ask questions, and we try and be as generous as possible, certainly within our means, because that's what we're there for. It's to support those additional requests that simply can't, there's no funding for. So that's our purpose. That's why we raise money. Definitely, we are watching trends, and there are teams that come back year after year after year, and there are some teams who never come. Girls and boys hockey, for instance, never approach us for anything. I think there was
Football either.
or football, right? And that becomes more, I think, a matter of. Like, for instance, with the boys hockey team, I think they have a pretty strong parental support group, and they go out and do a lot of fundraising on their own. And they are then able to just give back to their boys. I'm not as familiar with the football situation. I think the girls hockey team came to us a couple years ago wanting to, when they had merged with MMU, wanting to come up with a different jersey, and we don't support uniforms. So the answer was no. But, there are just some teams that don't necessarily have those needs. So baseball tends to come to us, track tends to come to us a lot, cross country, basketball's come to us with a few. Trying to think what else recently. But yeah, we're there to help and to support, and we really look at each thing on a case-by-case basis. And we don't always give them everything they ask for either. So,
They've been coming twice a year. The requests have been coming in twice a year. We're gonna go back to once a year, probably in the spring, so that we can be more even with our distribution of funds.
And I think it's an important part. I mean, this is, making sure that the coaches are aware of what's in their budget and what's really a budgeted item. And this has been important, for Ed. And also what's not. And so those are kind of sometimes when, there are certain examples that they're looking for this, but that really should be coming out of a budget area. And you mentioned the jerseys. And sometimes I think we have continued work with coaches who aren't in our system on a daily basis to explain to them, where you go and for what, So, but again, you guys we definitely know, the boosters here in this district have been active and have been wonderful in supporting the students and in a lot of cases the community for needs like the ski swap, which is very popular amongst communities around us as well.
Right. It's a lot of work that goes into that weekend.
Yes, that one. I know.
That is a big one.
Yeah.
A lot.
It would be interesting, I mean, if you start to see trends where, I know David's been, really helpful at separating what are ongoing operating expenses of having a team within the district versus, what may become sort of a dependable subsidy, for instance.
Right.
So you'll see that first. So that's always helpful to share that information if you
Well,
start to see it.
uniforms in particular have been a big thing, and we're seeing there's just a lot of chatter happening around that. And so we've had a lot of conversation amongst ourselves. Shouldn't we? We have our bylaws that say we don't. And I don't think we want to go down that road either, because we'd hate to see that disappear from, the.
Yeah, and I think, part of, we don't need to get too far into this, but, from the sporting program perspective or any of the co-curricular programs, it's really about, are we identifying the right types of resources? And where there is, we don't certainly want to have, 40-year-old equipment that's not either safe or not appropriate. So, there's definitely, and Ed's, wise and Michael Day before was around kind of a replacement cycle. To usurp that sometimes just because it's a want, I think we gotta ask, there's gotta be some questions that we're asking around rationale and reason, so.
Absolutely. We've grown quite a bit over the past couple of years, so it's been very nice. There's been a lot of new energy. Our Calcutta last year was the most successful it's been in several years, and so it's been very, very nice to have. And we're still, as people come on and cycle off, it's constantly morphing. And having Ed there has changed a few things as well. So it used to be that Mike would just come to us and say, he'd filter everything. Just say, here are the requests, these are the ones that I've said, okay, we'll bring it to the boosters. And that was just kind of the approval process. And it's been really nice for us to be able to get to know some of the athletes and some of the coaches. And so it's really removed that barrier, which has been nice.
Nice.
But, we're volunteers, so. You're welcome.
Yeah.
And I would say we'd love to get behind the restroom project, and we have quite a cushion that we could probably set aside some funds for that, and then maybe, we're a very goal-oriented group, so if we say we'd like to have a goal of X amount and just keep putting it in a fund for that, that'd be great. We'd love to be involved.
So I think
It's
this
important.
is a good kind of next step that you, through Ed, you can work with him. It would be great for us to connect with you soon. And, while we still have Mr. Stewart, we can circle and connect with you and begin to brainstorm around some,
Great.
next step recommendations and how you can be involved and informed.
Yeah.
So we can make that
John,
happen.
you
We
had a
would love
comment?
that.
I did want to say that last spring, I don't think you were president yet, but, co-president, but the boosters came forth wanting to coordinate the varsity cards, the
Oh,
gold
right.
cards. And we considered it a lot. We met with the promoter. We knew that a couple years before that, it it didn't go decent and in order. And so I want to say I appreciate that input that you had last year. And we would consider it again. Mr. Burke's feeling on it is the blitz is not something we want to do. I know that was very important to the promoter because it generates cash for both sides, but it sends people out everywhere, and that's not what we want to do. But I think, I'm speaking for David maybe, and I think we consider it again because the proposal was pretty good. There was controls with cash and a contract, a written contract, not just verbal, that kind of thing, which protects everybody. So, anyway, and the fact that students are involved, it's fine for the boosters to sell these, but the students, that was the kind of sticking point, and we'll talk about that again.
I wasn't really going to bring that one up, but because I was kind of not, but.
Well, I'm
Well,
glad
now
you
that we
did, because
did.
we had a question about it.
Yeah, so I was the one that said, no, I didn't feel comfortable. I didn't think there was enough clarity. We didn't have some controls, as John said. We didn't have great clarity, and I'm not wanting to offend you
No,
folks,
that's
but
fine.
I think anytime we send students out, we're a school district that, asks a fair amount from our community already. If we are going to go out, I think that there should be great clarity around what it is that we're going out and what we're trying to do. So, I mean, I really feel like those things are important, and I do want to be, mindful about how many times we, and I love to see kids out doing things that are good for our community, but I also want to balance that. I don't want everyone going out all the time and not having, consistency with that message. So I would be open to having that conversation, and I think we could combine that.
Yeah, I'm not sure that we don't do much business. It's really difficult for us to get the word out, and we.
For the gold cards.
Right, for those, we
I
were
think it's
there.
proven that if the students
We're the
sell,
best, yeah.
it's gonna work. If the students can't sell, it's not necessarily the last 2 years, it just hasn't worked. And we understand your concerns. The flip side of the coin is that we have elementary school students out there that are selling door to door, and we don't, my daughter's a sophomore here, there isn't anything that she's really doing as far as fundraising, and it's kind of an important thing for her to learn how to do. It's not an easy thing to do, so it's just something to maybe discuss at some point.
Sure, and just to be clear, I mean, I'm not just for the high school, middle school, but the whole district, trying to really get a handle on the fundraising
Yep.
and what we're doing. There's some safety issues that, we're always concerned about. And also, what's the goal and purpose, whether it's elementary, middle, or high school. So we've really definitely curtailed that, and I think you feel that. So
And
I
that's-
want to reframe that
Yeah,
and make that
yeah.
more.
Absolutely understandable,
Yeah.
definitely. I think this particular item might go away just because it's more effort than it's worth, and that's okay.
Well, again, as John said, I'm certainly happy to talk with you about it as well.
I think we would just need some help brainstorming how we could get the word out a little bit better. We set up at football games, and we were at the ski swap, and it's still, it is hard, and I agree, having lack of control with money everywhere and cards everywhere, it's, I get it.
Yeah, thank you. Well, we appreciate you coming in.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having
Thank
us.
you.
Thanks. Thanks for your hard work.
Nice to meet everyone.
Same.
As an alumni, I just have to say, I could get behind the bathrooms.
There you go.
It may not be glamorous, but it's
If you build a bathroom, you don't have to go behind it.
that's the thing. I always have
Just
to come in. I know.
I didn't go there. I was kind of thinking.
I've been quiet for a while.
Well, I thought we'll have sort of a 15 to 20-year window on the field
Please,
now.
yeah.
But,
Second round.
and like you said, it's probably not the most attractive, but it could be a really fun fundraiser.
It could. Think of
Or
what we could
funny
do.
fundraiser.
Yeah.
All
So-
right, alumni?
The alumni, I know you received that, you aren't getting a presentation. I don't know and I would ask if you do have questions or would like responses that you do that, with me. We sent it, that report went out, Delina helped me.
This packet.
So, yeah, actually, you do have it in here.
I have two quick things.
Yeah.
One is, do we do anything for Barney and his continued work for us in this
we thank him immensely.
Yeah, okay.
And,
I know he's been doing that for years
Yep.
in terms of helping us with that. And also, I just think it's important to point out, I'm the mother of a class of 2017, and this mentoring class of 67, these people have been just unbelievably generous and awesomely supportive of this class. And to the point of, tweeting at them during exam week, prior to exams when they went home for Christmas break, make sure to take an extra book home and study. We're thinking of you. They handed out little bags of goodies during exam week. I mean, they've really been gone above and beyond the call, and I just think it's.
Yeah, so Joanna Bach, who's worked, really hard, she works with all the classes, and obviously there's different levels of, participation. And so I've had the opportunity to meet with this particular class. I usually try to go on the reunion years and at least say hello and, say a few words around some of the things we are working on and doing. This class is absolutely right, Julie's right. And I've identified with Joanne to try to bring them to a board meeting in the future. Just, to number one, thank them that they're giving back kind of continually, both on what they received and giving back to students, as Julie has nicely articulated. So I do have them I'm trying to get them on a future agenda, particularly as they, support this group of students before they graduate. And we'll also, Patrick is aware that celebrating that success also maybe even at graduation with that class particularly. So we're mindful of that. But I do want to bring them here. That's been one of the things that has been a desire of mine.
They even took part in that class's talent night last year. Barbara Benedict of that class was part of the video, and she came in. I mean, really, it was pretty outstanding. So,
Well, is this class setting a precedent for
it would be
future
great if they were doing that. I mean, I think that was their intent.
Yeah.
I think that is what I talked to Barbara about it.
Yeah.
Absolutely what they're trying to do is set the bar and set the intent for how it should move forward.
And we can
That's
celebrate
pretty
that through.
amazing, yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Well, the class of 2017 will remember it.
Yeah, they will.
So I do think there's some things I need to provide you around kind of the future of the alumni, the foundation, projects specific. So, I'm going to be really clear, we haven't put a lot of time into it, was again, readying some of the things that needed to be addressed. John's been a huge help. The administrators have been a help in kind of getting some things in order where we then can communicate with better clarity around where we are and where we're going.
Maybe we'll have the John Stewart athletic bathrooms.
Oh, no.
Sorry, just saying.
Maybe just a stall.
Yeah.
Going downhill fast.
Yeah, that's good.
All right, we will move on to agenda item 8, legislative update.
So I think I don't have anything new for you. I think you have a lot of new things that have been going on. I might ask Martin if he wants to do a little recap of any big things going on, but certainly you're well aware of some of the activity around the education matters, as well as, some of the other things that are happening. But really, I think Act 46 has been the major, major kind of news update that's been happening. Some of the other ones that we've been watching, I haven't really had the opportunity to get any updates on. And, I'll work to do that. But Martin, I don't mean to put you on the spot. If there's anything you think we ought to be paying attention to again, but.
I mean, the Ed Committee, the life is being sucked out of them on this threshold issue. And I mean, we're coming in towards the end of our third week. And as far as I understand, they really haven't gotten to a whole lot of other things of substance. So I think the intention was to take up school financing, exactly in what manner is not clear, but they're going to be running out of time. So, but I'll keep you posted.
There has been a fair amount of push as of today, even to try to get, folks to influence their legislators to talk about, moving, I believe on the full repeal of Act 46 has been at least through VSA and BPA.
Yeah.
You probably were in receipt of that. So I don't know of the close of the session today, I don't know where that really stands, or if that still is active, and whether or not you want to, direct me, or you want to have a unified direction, or all wants to be individual. I don't.
Yeah, I think this kind of came up toward the end of this last session, where there was a flurry of requests from our local legislators, our professional organizations, to weigh in with local legislators on an opinion. But I know the feedback we gave during several legislative breakfasts was we can't form a consensus as a board without having the opportunity to meet and discuss in public. So then it really falls on individual board members, without representing the position of the board, to just send a note to the legislator, and you run the risk of it being interpreted as a board position. But I know Martin and I just had a brief discussion on whether, I was thinking of individually responding, but it's a little bit difficult with these sort of 11th hour requests for supporting a specific position. I don't know, Martin, do you want to add to that, or?
Well, I guess I'm really looking to the Ed Committee of the House to figure out what's best. I know most of them on the committee now, and really respect them a lot, and they're working really hard. And essentially, is from my legislative position, I'm probably going with what their recommendation is.
So basically, Nicole told us to write to you.
Right,
So
and
would that
what
make a difference? No, you're saying.
It's interesting because, yes, I mean, the VSBA wants a repeal first, a delay second, and then this modification third. What's likely to come out of the committee is the third, some sort of modification, or at least, who knows? At around noon today, that was what we were likely to see. And it's likely going to be unanimous, and the president of the VSBA is on that committee. So she's, as the VSBA saying repeal, she's on the committee trying to work towards a unanimous decision. It's Emily Long, and I have a lot of respect for her, and again, the rest of the committee, and I think they're going to do, what's best. If they come out and say repeal, I would back that.
Yeah.
But I think it's probably likely a modification. And
Well, and I think my individual concern is really on the basis of to have passed that legislation at the end of the last session and not realize the error in the impact as budgets had already been approved and going to voters, where I'm hearing stories, I think it's in Franklin County or something, or there's 6 schools, and one of them would have been over the threshold before the new formula, and now 5 of them are. So I don't know the impact across the state, but I just look at if there was that kind of misinterpretation in the passage of the first, you can call it a formula or whatever, but I also look at it and say the intent of community pressure at the time Act 46 came out was around property tax control, not around putting school districts and boards in a position to have to cut positions or not fund programming or not fund capital improvements or whatever was in the operating run rate. So I feel like it's created a lot of confusion that a temporary remedy, I guess, buys time to sort of evaluate what the impact is, but
Right.
I don't, and I know what you're saying. I know a lot of those people too, and it's unfortunate that it happened, but I'm not sure Band-Aiding it. And
Well, I
again, this
guess-
is my own opinion.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple, I guess, first of all, the whole concept was, well, there's the concept and then there's the politics. The concept of this was to have some sort of pressure downward on costs, so that, thus the spending threshold. The politics of it, frankly, is that Act 46 would not have passed without that, because it was a bipartisan, it's not a partisan bill, it wasn't a partisan act, and quite a few Republicans or conservative Democrats or whatnot would not have voted for that without something like the spending threshold. On the other hand, a bunch of Democrats, which you might think would go along with the committee, were gonna vote no and did vote no because of the disagreement with the governance part of it. So that's the politics of it behind there. The politics as it is right now, as I understand it, is the repeal's likely not to pass. And if they can't come up with something, then it's just gonna stay what we have right now, which is the worst possibility.
Right.
And if nothing else goes through, it sounds like at least what we're calling a hold harmless. And the concept was that we all calculated our budgets based on one formula from the Agency of Education, and that just changed on Friday, which John talked about earlier today. And whichever one worked out better for a district, that's the one you should be able to go with. So at a minimum, it sounds like that's going to go through, probably unanimously as far as, between the House and Senate. So it's all very interesting.
I just didn't know whether or not there was a general statement, or if that's what you wanted to do as a board, to the responses of the, kind of the mass emails, kind of to your point.
Well, and a little
where,
bit of my concern is I don't want saying nothing to be
Right.
implied as either no interest or no, and we're, as a district, we're fortunate with this budget year, but will be impacted in future years, and it could have been different for us this year too.
Right, but right now, as we know, sometimes when you want to write testimony, you need to have a compelling story. Right now, we do not have one.
Right.
So
But
it
the
would
story
be-
could be,
It could be, but in this chaotic session,
Yeah,
It's a
No,
little
I
harder.
totally agree. I do think, though, people may, again, this information is gonna get out on our budget, current conditions, probably will be be available first thing in the morning. It may be that you have folks that are looking to you, looking to me, where do you stand with us, in these others? So it may be something that, I'm just asking whether you wanna have a general statement that might say, these things, these last minute changes are unfortunate to our, our colleagues and partner schools throughout Vermont. That's not what we believe the intention was, I don't know. Again, I think to your point, we can do individually, but if that happens too, that can also be a divide, or
Right.
doing nothing also has, implications. And again, I certainly can respond also, on what I have heard, through VSA, but.
Well,
again,
and I think
not-
you can speak to the burden on the district and you guys,
Well, yeah, I
what
mean,
you've been through this weekend.
that's right. I think, anything that has, we have enough variables in play in building a budget that tries to continue to move forward a school, right, or a district. When you have added pressure and variables that are in play like this, it adds such complexity to trying to ensure that due diligence going forward. And I think and we're a preferred district with one board. Can you imagine if you have some of our colleagues where they have 8, 9, 10 boards, right? So, I think there's great sensitivity to colleagues that are trying to do this work, and I want that to be, I think that's
Well,
really critical.
is there at minimum an opportunity to reinforce at least the interest in, because the one piece of the budget right now that's still variable is the yield rate, right?
Right.
Is that the one piece that's still variable?
I think
I would-
so, and, if, I can express, to my friends that are on the Ed Committee, for whatever it's worth, that this is that component is very critical for going forward, with the spending threshold. Because the thing is, it doesn't impact the spending threshold as much as it impacts the bottom line taxes, property
Well,
taxes.
it's more just the
Yeah,
fact
it's
that
not-
we've gone
It's not the
through
spending threshold.
7
that's related to it.
iterations and
Right.
consumed a
Yeah.
lot of
Time.
district time and resources to accommodate the
Right.
last-minute changes and approve a budget. And we'd like to be able to communicate with some level of certainty what the impact is to the community, because we're
Yeah, yeah.
asking for,
Yeah, my view on that part is between the agency of education, legislature, whatnot, they've added so much confusion to the process of budgeting in an already confusing manner, that if they back off of what the tax commissioner's suggestion was, or as far as, or the AOE suggestion of what the yield was, that is really problematic. And I'm definitely gonna be, pushing that we don't change that. So, and I'm sure, so, for whatever that's worth.
All right.
So I agree with that.
So it sounds like, unless I'm hearing a motion otherwise, that we probably would not take a board position with at least the VSBA. Okay. Anything else on legislative update?
My bill died.
We saw that. Second Amendment.
I guess you'll get some
Fourth
clarification
Amendment.
from the,
Fourth Amendment.
what, Supreme Court?
Yeah, the Supreme Court,
All
Bernard
right.
versus Minnesota.
We'll move on to master planning and visioning.
Really don't have anything new to update. Again, the board has had the opportunity to connect with White and Burke. I think just important for the public to know that that is ongoing, and we are working to set up a public opportunity to share and get feedback, and the board's working to do that. It would likely be soon after the March town meeting timeframe where we're able to do that.
So I have a question on the master plan. Does the work at the U-Mall and what they're planning on doing, is that changing at all the vision of the city as far as what they're envisioning for city center? I mean, does that, we haven't heard from them if they are backing off their offer for swapping the land at this point, but, can we at least find out if that?
Certainly can ask. I mean, these are in part conversations that we've had with certainly Kevin and Pat, in kind of small scale conversation. I can reach out to Kevin, and, I know that there was a presentation yesterday or the day before.
Yesterday.
At the U-Mall, and kind of their ideas and grand plans. I don't know that that's factored in then to the, what's that possibly changed in their whole planning, if that was to go through. So I'm happy to ask. Right now, I haven't heard, no one's approached and said this is changing, so.
Well, somebody said, I don't know if it was the presenter or somebody else, was suggesting that we're going to see more office and residence along Market Street and in the city center, if in fact all this new retail and such is going to be happening at the U-Mall, which just could change what they want as far as the school. So anyway.
I'm happy to reach out to Kevin, and particularly given, and he did make mention of that this evening, that that was really, and Julie had told me that was a really positive meeting. Sharing, presentation, whatever it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, none of that has gone, it sounds to me like none of it's gone before the city, but.
Was there a time frame for that to go before the city?
He said he was hoping to start spring of 16.
That would be soon.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Because there's some, from what I understand, there's some things you can do without having to get an Act 250 permit modification.
It's definitely a phased project from his perspective.
Certainly
It was
ask.
a very good meeting.
Certainly ask, and I'll circle back with some, whatever feedback is provided.
Great. All right, agenda item 10, review topic for the other paper article. I think our schedule is this would be on the budget, and I think, Patrick, you were up in queue?
Correct.
I don't recall the due date for this one offhand.
It's next week at some point, I think.
I think it's the Thursday before the
So it
first
typically would be
Thursday of
next
the-
Thursday then. And I know you solicited whether people had specific bullet point items they would want.
Yep.
Did
And I'll
you
be drafting it up this weekend. I'll send it off through David back for everybody's review.
All right.
Perfect.
And you know all the restrictions on word count and so forth?
Yep.
Okay. All right, we'll move on to the budget communication plan.
So I have included, so there's a few things. You have the large sheet, which was our insert into the other paper. And I have a letter that I've drafted. I put a draft on that, which is usually goes in the budget book, the first page.
So when do you want comments on these?
Well, I think, my letter would be good. We are trying to do by Monday at noon, trying to get things to Krista. That's our Krista Chambers, who pulls it together from the city and the school. So I'd love to get some feedback from you folks on that. On the large sheet, which is the insert.
Can you send us?
Sure. Yep.
Electronically, Delina, can you send that?
Yep. So the large sheet has been the format that we did in the past. My recommendation would be maybe to keep the same format, obviously with the new data on it. But again, I don't know if you would desire a different look. We know that we are fortunate to have some folks here in the middle school that work, but Adele Strasnick helps with this, and this has kind of been formatted already. We could plug in the new information and have that kind of ready, and you could kind of add it pretty quickly. So I don't.
Okay.
I
So
don't
this is
think
all
it-
the information from last year that's on there for now.
That's right, that's right. It's not the new Martin.
Right.
And then the budget communication, Delina has worked to get just kind of the identified times, January and February leading up. So there may be other things that you want to do. I have times where I'm going to either the schools or to PTOs. There may be other things that you have, that you know about that we should attend. Rotary, I've gone to that in the past. I haven't figured that one out.
So a quick question on the, I'm a little confused by the schedule on February 8, 9, 10. Which, is Orchard School on the 8th and Central on the 8th, or is Central on the 9th?
Oh, the way it's
And-
divided,
Yeah, I just can't,
not positive, I can tell you, because Delina has,
all three of those are the 8, 9, and 10? Yeah. The middle school's on the 10th? Right. Can I
And
sign
some
up?
of the schools don't have a meeting
Right,
that fits with.
Can I sign up for
Orchard.
Orchard? I'll sign up for Orchard.
so I think the way this would work is,
Yeah,
I plan on going.
Yeah, I'll go with.
And it'd be great, at any of these, if, I do have presentations to the staff, and I'm happy to have you come to that too. Typically, it's been just me doing the
I mean,
staff.
I'm happy to go to Central as well if nobody else.
Yeah.
So,
is around.
again, I think this is there to be, either you can
Yeah.
attend and/or what are some other things
Yeah, I'll
that
probably attend that.
you'd like to maybe have on here?
That's the 9th for Central, did you say, Delina? Okay. You just
Sharing
confirm that for me. I'll
The
put
letter
it
with
on
you
it.
first. and then
7,
I'll
8,
look
and
at
9
that.
blurred.
How about something like Pillsbury Manor?
Allenwood, I've done that
Allenwood.
too, so some of those are ones I just haven't really figured that out yet. I haven't communicated that to Delina either. But I have some folks that
I wonder if
enjoy.
it would be better to invite those people all at once here. You know what I mean? Or do you
Oh,
think it's
which
better to
people?
go? I mean, because you could do the Pines and Pillsbury Manor and Allenwood, and
Part of that,
We could,
yeah,
we could have a bus.
we could have a bus.
I mean, we should be able to do, 2 or 3 presentations, or we could even break it up.
the senior luncheon we've done, over at the city. I know that they do like going, I go to Allenwood
Yeah.
and Pillsbury Manor, they're all present and ready,
They're,
interested in the conversation.
yeah, a great audience.
Well, no,
They're
they-
really,
I really have
Do
enjoyed
you-
it,
are
actually. Made
engaged.
some good connections.
In the past, when you do that, is that like a 10-minute thing, basically?
Julie,
I'm
you
ju-
know me better than
I'm
that.
just asking.
You mean at the-
I'm
you mean at-
thinking-
You mean at
That was
Allenwood or the
progress.
PTO?
No, I'm saying is your 1,000-foot level presentation of the budget there 10 to
Usually
15 minutes?
I give a handout,
Yeah.
do a short, kind of don't give them that busy budget
Right.
sheet, but just highlight some of the big things, tax rate, what's it mean,
Yeah,
those.
okay.
And some of
Yeah.
the things that we're doing in the district. And
I'm
kind
happy
of
to
leave
go
it
to
open to
those too.
questions, because I find that a lot of them really are interested in what's happened in education from their point of view to where they are today, and they want to offer, I think really helpful insight. And that listening and taking those questions and some of our challenges has been one of the best takeaways for me.
And my understanding is that for them, I think usually they schedule these in the late morning or in the morning time, so I'd be eager to do it, but I'm just not that
No problem.
available.
So,
I can definitely be available for some of those.
Yeah, I
so.
can too.
So we'll continue to populate this, and if you then could just we have some of those, you let Delina know which you're gonna go to.
Will you
If-
let us know about the other ones you add? Yeah, I know you will.
Chamberlain is Monday.
What about
Okay.
the other kind of
Is Monday the
digital
one?
media?
Chamberlain.
I think we haven't participated as much in Front
So is
Porch
Orchard.
Forum, but I know I can post on that. I think there's just limitation on length, right?
I don't know all the rules of Front Porch Forum. Do you, Delina?
Well,
I'm sorry.
Well,
Front Porch Forum.
She's trying to
Elizabeth,
figure out
you
Orchard and
can,
Chamberlain.
you can, post to all of them, right?
Yes, that's what I
Yeah.
just said.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yes, so I mean, if we might want to have a strategy of sort of doing something now and then something right before town meeting day.
Yeah, this,
Well, I'd like to just know what the parameters are in terms of maybe word count.
I think you can,
I think it's more of making the message punchy enough for people to actually read it, as opposed to a limit on words.
but I think
Well,
brevity is not a
that's all
bad
in the
thing,
headline, if I say
myself.
something about.
Or to approach, where every week or two you give them another bit of data about it leading up to town meeting, as opposed to try to give them all in one
That's
big
actually a good idea.
dialogue.
It's not a bad idea, yeah.
It takes more time, because you gotta plan it out, and then you gotta spend some time every week or two sending something, so.
so typically we post up on our website, we have information about our budget, which we do. We've had our, did you like how I do the we stuff?
And we're allowed to send stuff home through our administrative people, right?
Yeah, the administrators send home information, we do absentee ballot information, for all families. We've typically done that through the administrators, just, we don't say vote yes, but information's available, absentee ballot, voter registration. Those are things, and Patrick has been, he's been instrumental in doing a lot of that for us, particularly with students that are, of age, to make sure, also tweeting out, register to vote, all those things, so.
Yeah. He should, actually, that would be good for him to get the date out of when you have to get your absentee ballot by, for those kids that are able to vote at this point in time, all of those alumni, yeah. He reaches a pretty large
Might not
crowd.
be,
He's got 2,000.
I haven't thought this through, but I'll say it anyway, we talked with the boosters about some of the athletic leadership groups. Is there something that the leadership in those groups could be brainstorming to how they could get the word out?
Yep. Actually, Ed asked about developing a postcard kind of idea and having that go out through, what did he say? Do you remember what he had emailed me this? So he had an idea, and I said, I don't know if did you get it too, John?
I did.
Yeah, I'm just trying to blank on the, maybe I included it here,
But
but.
it might not be bad to ask Nerali when she's at the next meeting about her ideas on how to communicate this out as well.
Follow up on that.
It'd be a really good voice to hear from on this one.
So anyway, we have a lot, and we've done a lot of good things in the past. It's, just trying to pull it all together, so. Number one, we want to make sure we get the budget book done. So we're currently working on the questions. So, what is, we've got John and I and Amity, Delina, we've worked on kind of framing out those things. We'll share those with you. Maybe you'll see that there's something that's absent, but definitely we're covering the bonds, we're covering, the capital reserve, Act 46, trying to, anything that's kind of named in the budget to try to give clarity to. Some of the same questions will reoccur again as they're continue to be relevant and important. Some that obviously that aren't, and we've taken those out. So
So could you, when is the draft gonna be done and when is it due? Just for planning
Well,
purposes for us, because
we're
I do wanna
in control.
look at it. and-
we're in control of putting it all together. We receive the city, and I say we, Krista Chambers gets it. And then there's a lot of readers that then she has to format it and all of that, plus our stuff. So right now, we met today and we've kind of given our own internal deadline of noon Monday. So we're working currently on questions. John is, I am, Delina, Amity, and Krista are working on this. Well, actually, a lot of people have been working on
So
it.
can we get them by?
So, I don't know, let me see what we can do. Certainly, before we do submission, we can, and there'll be a little bit of extra time, I just don't want to promise that out. We can, so we'll get you the questions too. And we can even do that as a kind of a draft. This is what we have so far, even if they aren't even yet populated.
Yeah, that would be great.
Then you can see if there's something missing that you might like to have included.
And when typically, we buy space
Yep.
for this particular page, when does this go in? Is it right before? Because that's the vacation.
Yeah, we did this leading up to the March vote vacation. I think it was late February?
Mid-February, because it goes out before the vacation,
Before vacation.
so somewhere around the 10th.
So it would have to, everything would have to be into us by, let me get my calendar up. That no later than the 11th if you want it published on the 18th, but that's probably too late. That's the weekend before vacation. You probably want it published on the 11th, I would think, right?
Yeah.
And then be able to
Leaves.
follow up with other messages, right?
So it needs to be, everything needs to be 100% complete by Wednesday the 3rd.
Well, the 11th, though, is when, that's when your letter will be in, right? Or your column?
No, it's
No,
the
it's the
week
week
before.
A week
that.
before, okay. Well, that'll be good.
that's-
So we'll have one there. This would be next. Okay.
The budget book has to be posted the 28th, so it should be done the 27th. Monday's the 25th,
28th
it's-
of January.
January,
We have,
right?
and again, it's helped us that we can post it electronically, but there's still pressure to have it.
Right.
Right.
We're only printing X amount, the postcards go out.
So after the budget book, you'll take a first pass at this, and we'll shoot to get this in the February 11th
Yeah, I mean,
publication.
yep,
So
and
that
what I would
means
say
it's
is
the 3rd.
if you're okay with this format,
That's
if
fine.
you
This
would
won't
like
be that
something
hard.
different, more narrative to this year, fine. If not, we can work to populate it with similar FTE data and,
I think I'd shoot for the same type of data.
fine.
We might,
Consistency. Presenting it like this seems to have a lot of value as opposed to
Yeah.
changing it up every year.
John?
What Ed Hockenberry's idea was to get some sort of budget fact sheet to could go to athletic events.
Right.
He had some ideas about what to put in it,
Mm-hmm.
and also the bond issue part of it.
Right.
Yeah,
Make sure that he's not trying to sell it as a yes or no vote.
Right.
no, he was saying something we would supply them and he would make sure that it's, gets handed out, right, John,
He did say a postcard style document we have for games that might help spread the word. Yeah.
right, and then he can say, well, don't forget
When you walk,
to pick up
when you
your
walk in,
card on the way out.
or maybe when you walk in, you pay your ticket, you get your ticket and get your
Yeah.
little sell sheet, you get your sheet on the fax.
It would beat the sandwich board idea. Which, if you remember, the line
Didn't
is,
get a
you're
lot of,
laughing, but we didn't get a lot of attention with that.
I don't remember.
Diane and I
positive
sitting
votes,
with the
yeah.
sandwich board.
Just wanted a
Well, did you have
sandwich.
sandwiches?
Yeah.
No.
So, all right, we'll put this together. If you think of other things, let us know.
Okay.
And Patrick, just for your benefit, we have gone through previous years where we tried to attend a lot of the co-curricular events like this, art students and things like that, and it's not the
People really don't want to
Best
talk about the
opportunity.
budget with
Like
us.
the summer event, when we had a little table set up, there's about that much activity.
yes.
It could be, like Ed may have a good idea. It could be when you're,
It might be, and
whoever said, and the program goes out, the card goes out, it could be, we try to just attend. If you have any questions, I know there's someone here to answer your questions if you want. I don't, that's a shorter period of time, because they
Yeah.
all come in within a half hour probably, and then that's it. Wow. That may not be great, because they don't really want to talk, they just want to get in, so.
Well, if the information gets out,
Not
that's
that
okay.
not that I want to suggest more time at events, but I mean, if you want to go where people are, there's a lot of faith-based organizations that every week residents all over the town are convening in certain locations on a Sunday, so. That's a lot of places to go visit as well, though.
Well, if there's contacts there, the people, again, this is, they're part of our community too. If they're interested in getting some information and want to get an update, fine. So if you have contacts that way.
Do we send out any of the publication information to the Citizens Finance Group ahead of time for input as well? Or have they kind of disbanded at this point?
No. Actually, we've been getting questions, and there's I don't want to mispronounce it, but can you say what the blog is that you?
Bridget's been doing a nice job.
Yes.
There've been a lot of questions.
Yes, Amity screened all that and gleaned questions off, some of which will be in our questions and answers.
Okay,
So, yeah.
good.
Yeah.
I think I'd be failing at monitoring.
I was going to say, we haven't heard a lot of reports on that.
Which means that somebody else should take over for me.
And I might add, I don't want to embarrass anybody, but Bridget wrote a very spectacular summary of the budget the other night. It was pretty cool.
So I'm going to write some of the
Yeah.
other
Well,
papers.
if
If I can get a
Patrick-
copy of it, that'd be really nice.
Smart, resourceful.
Please do.
You are so mean.
Sorry, I apologize.
What a guy.
All right, so we're setting the agenda.
All right, we will move on to the February 3rd agenda.
So I need a little time in executive session to talk about negotiation update. If we could add that, because you have teachers and support staff, but I need administrators to be
Okay.
added.
So I'm proposing that we start at 5:30.
I don't like that.
I don't like it either.
I know, but we have a
I-
lot because
I may not be there by 5:30. I can't guarantee that.
So
6 is possible, though.
are we? Okay.
Well, we can work to try to, we're trying to get an update on some of the things specific to negotiation preparation. We also we had an update that was going to come back from White and Burke from your last meeting, so that was slated for some time. About how much time would you need?
10 minutes.
Well, let me see what we can do to start it at 6, and
I mean, if we need to go back for just a few more minutes, that's,
it's fine. And that's why I'm asking, so it's fine.
Speak for yourself.
we'll leave yours to last, so you'll want to do it and go back into executive session after.
It doesn't have to be this next agenda, so maybe it's future agenda items, but I know at one point I was approached before the holidays about work that I think the central school 5th grade class was working on about
Yep, history.
the history of, and how the schools kind of converge into one central school, so depending on where they are, I definitely want to make sure we hear that from that group.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
need
yeah,
to add the
yeah.
student rep issue too.
On this February 3rd,
Right.
yeah.
Oh, because this is going to be at Central School?
No, this is a Tuttle.
No, I'm just,
You not
that's-
read.
So we're going to put Central
No, I think
School
that's at
the future, yeah.
history on future agenda
I think
items.
this is,
Central School.
We'll put the student
isn't it
voice
supposed to be at Central? No?
on
No? Okay.
the 3rd agenda.
Do you want to keep it right as number 5? And
So we
Oh,
can't have
okay.
it there.
Yeah, because I didn't think we were supposed to be
yes.
back here. Oh, okay.
use it as number 5.
Didn't we do a
student
meeting
voice.
there once at Family?
Well, we can keep that,
Representative
but
report.
it'll be like, and make it the new 6 or 5A or whatever.
Right,
But if you can
combine them,
check
yeah.
with Patrick on that.
Okay.
Anything else on to be added to the February 3rd agenda item or future agenda items?
Yep, the foundation and
Yep, from our meeting.
from our
We-
meeting.
Foundation.
Is that on, or we're
No,
adding
it's
it?
not on.
I think it's a placeholder to hold it, so we get you get an update.
Okay.
Yep.
We'll focus more on the,
Educational quality review.
of which the Common Core and SBAC will be part of that, but a bigger piece is what's happening.
So I'm going to rename that ends SBAC and Common Core to Education Quality Reviews, which will pull those in. So,
All right.
that's all I got.
And any future agenda items on our agenda item 13 that we have not discussed already? Okay. We'll move on to 14, consider the minutes of the January 6th meeting. Any changes?
Sorry.
Is this that warehouse?
All right, seeing none, those are approved. Any changes or comments on the January 13th minutes?
I would just note that I think the copy that's in front of us isn't the most recent one. There's another in the final, under the consideration for the capital reserve fund. I think it now indicates that I abstained from that vote.
So the January 13th, that should be on page 2. It
Yes.
should indicate, rather than all were in favor, Mr. Long seconded, and Patrick Leduc abstained.
Yep.
Correct.
And it's corrected in the blue folder, Elizabeth.
Okay. All right. Okay, with that change, seeing no additional objections, those minutes are approved. Consent agenda. Do you want to cover the position?
So you have a new hire. This is the technology education teacher at FHT here, and it's Kevin Murakami is being recommended to you tonight to fulfill that position.
Any questions or comments? And we don't take action on this, correct? All right, seeing none, any questions or comments on AP orders 25, 26, or 27? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to the AP order on Agenda 17, payable to the Howard Center in the amount of $71,914.45. Any questions or comments? Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. And do I have a motion to adjourn? All in favor? Any opposed? We are adjourned.